I'm afraid to bring you all the news. The end is near. For one, Patrik Laine and the Montreal Canadiens as we dive into this trade update that essentially tells us everything that we need to know and everything that we probably, most likely, definitely already knew in the back of our minds. Today we're talking about Patrik Laine, 27-year-old, 6'5", 216 right-handed winger, signed on till the end of this season, making $8.7 million a year. Laine has been nothing short of a disappointment this season, and that's mostly because he hasn't been available. He hasn't played in a while. He's only got 1 assist in the 5 games that he did play, and even in the preseason and all that, you could definitely say that Patrik Laine was not nearly as effective as he once was in the 2024-2025 campaign. Yes, there's reasonable doubt in regards to Patrik Laine faltering off from his ceiling, considering it was just 2-3 years ago where he was a near point-per-game guy. But times have changed for the 27-year-old. He hasn't played, he hasn't been utilized, and he's making a lot of money. Which is why when we go over to the latest from Stu Cowan on the Montreal Gazette, we have ourselves some commentary on the Patrik Laine situation that essentially gives us the details as to how everything could be going down. We'll read the article itself as it's presented on the Gazette's website, but we'll also look at this tweet made by NHL Rumour Report. Stu Cowan said in the broadcast, "I definitely do not see a future for Patrik Laine with the Canadiens beyond this season. Hughes would obviously love to get something in exchange for him ahead of the March 6th NHL trade deadline." And the top comment says, "Laine with 50% retained and a second for Shane Wright." Okay, that's not going to happen. But this is another breakdown that I thought was interesting. Elite sniper with a wicked shot and great size. Streaky scorer, inconsistent defensively, and can disappear in games. Needs to improve playmaking skills. Here are all of the locations of Patrik Laine's 0 goals in 2025-2026 by shot type. And obviously this post is kind of a joke because Laine doesn't have any goals. Either way, let's go over to the Stu Cowan article and read the piece from the man himself. Habs mailbag, Alexandre Texier, good fit at a cheap price for the Canadiens. This will be linked in the description if you want to go out there and read about Texier yourself, I guess. Just scrolling all the way down over here to the Patrik Laine section of the piece. What do you see the Habs doing with or about Patrik Laine? Stu Cowan writes, "When Laine suffered a core muscle injury that required surgery in late October, he was expected to be sidelined for 3 to 4 months. He practiced with his teammates for the first time since his surgery Friday in Ottawa, but there might not be a regular spot in the lineup for him now, unless St. Louis wants to try him in Texier's spot on the first line. I don't see Laine as a bottom 6 forward with more of a defensive role, and I wouldn't break up that second line." Laine, 27, is in the final year of his $8.7 million AAV contract. I definitely don't see a future for Laine with the Canadiens beyond this season, and GM Kent Hughes would obviously love to get something in exchange for him. So giving Laine a few games on the top line and the power play would be a way to showcase him and try to increase his trade value if Hughes believes there are other teams who might be interested in him. And that idea is quite the intriguing one as well, bringing Patrik Laine back for a small segment, giving him all the minutes in the world. Screw Kirby Dach on line 1, let's get Patrik Laine up there on line 1, give him the first power play spot, replace one of these guys, which would honestly be kind of impossible, get Laine up there, feed him some one-timers, and see if he could go out there and get his value up. Honestly, maybe you can move around enough pieces to actually give Laine what he wants. We'd already heard from previous interviews that Laine actually prefers receiving passes from right-handed defensemen on the power play and not lefties. So maybe take Noah Dobson and put him back on the first unit, take Slavkovsky down or whatever and have Laine there with Caulfield, Suzuki, Demidov, Hudson, Slav go on the second unit with Kapanen, for example. That works, in my opinion. You could try to expand and capitalize on the chemistry that's been developing between that line already. But this Cowan idea is interesting. Showcasing Patrik Laine, giving him a spot on the team that allows him to fully get back up to speed. Now, whether or not he'll be able to do that and actually skate up to speed is a totally separate issue, and it's one that I think a lot of Canadiens fans have the right to be concerned about with Patrik Laine. Sure, there were some moments throughout his days in both Columbus and in Winnipeg where he would showcase the Jets and just decide to take it end to end. He'd go on a rush by himself, he'd dangle by two guys, and then he'd slip by a third, and he'd score either a snipe or a dangle in tight. Patrik Laine is capable of doing that. He was drafted second overall back in 2016 for a reason. Now that I think about it, 2016 was a decade ago. Oh my gosh. The summer of 2016 is calling my name, but Patrik Laine has always had that talent. It's just the confidence, the mentality to be able to execute consistently. I don't think we're ever going to see a 70-point Laine ever again. I don't think we're ever going to see a 40-goal Laine ever again. And it's unfortunate because this season where he was able to do that, that was his 19-year-old year. He was so young in the National Hockey League after getting 64 points and 36 goals as an 18-year-old that the rest of his time in the league had just been bogged down by injuries and Blake Wheeler drama and Columbus podcast drama and all this extra stuff with his health in Montreal. He was a big reason the Canadiens even made the playoffs last year. Marty St. Louis made that very apparent. But this season, Patty Laine just has not been available, and sometimes availability is the best skill. Even though other guys might not be as good as you, as potent of a scorer as you are, or even as beloved as you are. Patrik Laine not being an option for Montreal has killed his value, so the Habs are going to have to try to get some of that back by showcasing this guy. If they can trade him away for anything, trade him to Vancouver for all I care. Trade him to the Canucks with a second-round pick. Vancouver walks away with future considerations going back to Montreal. They're happy. They've got this guy. His contract expires at the end of the year. There are opportunities to weaponize your cap space if you're a bottom-feeder team looking at Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. For Patrik Laine, he just doesn't have a spot on this team anymore. And that's unfortunate because you look at the work that a lot of these guys have been doing. I mean, this lineup doesn't even include Alexandre Texier. He's not in this lineup, and we already know that he has been very effective when he is placed within it. So, Laine, I think he's overstayed his welcome. Obviously, it's not his fault. I'm not blaming him. He got hurt. That's not anybody's fault, really. It's just unlucky. And whether or not Patrik Laine is even going to have an NHL job next year, anywhere close to $8.7 million, is a totally separate conversation, and one that, frankly, I don't think is going to happen. This guy is probably going to get a next contract at $3 million, $4 million max. Either that or he goes back to Europe. I don't know what's going to go on with this guy. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Patrik Laine and his inevitable NHL departure from Montreal? Does that come via free agency or via a trade this season? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on and bye.